So you've put in the hours, right? Your grammar feels pretty solid, vocabulary's growing. Maybe you're hitting C1 or even looking beyond that.
Yeah, but then sometimes you listen to native speakers and it just feels like this whirlwind of words.
Totally. Like a fire hose of sound hitting you.
Exactly. You hear the words, maybe, but they kind of blur together. Or maybe an accent catches you off guard and suddenly you realize, oh, I've completely missed the point of this whole conversation.
Like you're trying to catch smoke. It's frustrating.
It really can be. Like trying to follow a script when you're only catching half the lines.
Right. And look, if that sounds familiar to you, you are definitely not alone. And you're in the right place. Because this deep dive, it's all about pulling back that curtain on those advanced listening challenges. And more importantly, giving you the tools to actually get what you're hearing.
Yeah, we've pulled together a whole load of insights and strategies from various sources for this deep dive. Think of it like a practical guide, a roadmap.
A cheat sheet to turn that confusing stream of sound into, well, actual understanding.
That's the goal, moving beyond just hearing the noise.
Exactly. So our mission today, help you move from just hearing to truly grasping the meaning, the nuance, all the stuff that makes English sound real and natural.
So we'll unpack some common pitfalls and mistakes people make.
And crucially, we'll dig into the really practical, actionable solutions that the sources suggest. Hopefully, you'll have some light bulb moments.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay. So the first big one, our source material flags, and I know I've definitely done this, is that natural instinct to try and understand every single word.
Right. It feels logical, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We spend all this time building vocab lists, drilling grammar. Surely understanding means catching every single piece.
It feels like that should be the goal,
Yeah.
but real spoken English, it just doesn't always play by those rules, does it?
Not at all. You've got contractions, words linking together. Sometimes people trail off or they use slang you haven't heard before. And that's where trying to catch every word actually works against you. Your brain snags on one little sound, one word that maybe got swallowed. And while you're stuck on that bit, the rest of the sentence, maybe the whole point, just flies by.
You miss the forest for the trees. Or maybe just one tiny leaf. So what's the shift? What do the sources say we should do instead?
It's about shifting focus, prioritizing the gist,
Yeah.
the overall meaning.
The main idea.
Exactly. Think about reading. When you read fluently, you're not sounding out every letter right. Your brain processes words, phrases, gets the big picture. Listening needs that same skill.
Yeah.
Focus on patterns, the overall message.
Okay. Patterns, not just individual bricks. And context must be huge for that.
Oh, massive. The words around the tricky bit, the topic you're discussing, the speaker's tone of voice. Always, these are clues. They help you fill in the blanks, piece together the meaning, even if you miss a word here or there.
Right. So how do we actually, train ourselves to do this? The sources had some practical tips, listening to different kinds of things.
Yeah, definitely. Variety is key. Listen to TED Talks, podcasts, news reports, different speakers, different speeds, different topics. It makes your brain more flexible.
Okay.
It gets better at finding the main points no matter the sort of surface details. That exposure really builds flexibility.
And something else the sources mentioned, which I thought was really clever, using transcripts. But after you listen...
Oh, yeah. That's a really powerful technique. You listen first, right? Try your best to get the gist. Then you look at the transcript.
Okay.
And you can say, okay, I missed that specific word. But the real eye-opener is often realizing how much you still understood the main idea despite missing those words.
It's like proving to yourself that you don't need 100% word recognition. That must be great for confidence.
Exactly. It reframes the goal. It's not about impossible perfection. It's about effective comprehension.
Okay.
So the takeaway here, don't get hung up on every single word. Aim for the overall meaning. Use context clues actively. Listen to lots of different stuff and use transcripts strategically to prove to yourself how much you are understanding.
Right.
Okay, so moving from words blurring together to sounds actually linking up, that brings us to connected speech. Another biggie.
Ah, yes. Where words just don't sound like they look in the dictionary when they're strung together, like going to becoming gonna.
Or kind of, becoming kinda.
Exactly. Or, the example in the source, go on, can sometimes sound almost like guan. It can really throw you off if you're expecting these neat, separate word units.
And they just melt.
They do. And it's not always just about speed, though that plays a part. It's the natural way sounds link and reduce in fluent speech. The sources really stress that the fix isn't just trying to listen faster.
Right.
It's about familiarizing your ear with these common patterns.
Familiarization. Okay, so like teaching your ear a new set of rules, the rules for how sounds actually behave in the wild.
That's a great way to put it. It's like learning a sound code. How sounds change when words bump up against each other. So how do the sources say we should crack this code? Well, they suggest really listening for it. Not just for meaning, but actively noticing how sounds connect and change in natural conversation.
Being mindful of the sounds themselves. And they also recommend a technique called shadowing.
Shadowing. Yeah, I've heard of that. It's like repeating what someone says almost immediately, like their shadow.
Exactly that. You listen to a short bit of audio and you try to repeat it back, almost in sync with the speaker.
Okay.
It forces you to try and match their rhythm, their intonation, and crucially, those connected speech patterns.
That sounds challenging. But I can see how it would really tune your ear and even your mouth to those natural flows.
It really does, because you're not just passively hearing it, you're actively trying to produce it.
Yeah.
That really deepens the learning. Another really practical tip from the sources is using slow speed playback.
Oh, like the slow-mo button on audio?
Precisely. It's like watching a dancer's complex move slowed right down. You can see how everything connects. Slow the audio down, and suddenly you can actually hear those links and reductions that are just a blur at normal speed.
And then you could gradually speed it back up as you get more comfortable. That's smart.
Yeah.
So for connected speech, actively train your ear, notice the patterns, use shadowing to practice production, and slow things down when you need to really hear the links.
You got it. And speaking of sounds changing, accents.
Ah, yes. The beautiful, sometimes bewildering variety of English accents around the world.
It's amazing, isn't it? British, American, Australian, Indian, Irish, Scottish, plus all the regional variations within those. Each one has its own music.
But for a learner, it can sometimes feel like you've suddenly switched languages, right? Pronunciation shifts, intonation patterns are different, sometimes even vocabulary varies.
Definitely. It has so much character to the language, but yeah, it's a genuine listening challenge. So what's the core advice from the sources for dealing with accents?
One word, really. Exposure.
Exposure, exposure, exposure. Yep, you just have to hear them a lot. Your brain needs to build up a kind of database of how English can sound. The more accents you hear, the better your brain gets at tuning in and decoding the variations.
Makes total sense. So how do we get this magical exposure? What do the sources recommend?
Well, they mention great general resources like BBC Learning English, NPR, TED Talks, places where you'll naturally hear a mix of speakers.
Okay.
But they also suggest being more deliberate. Actively seek out media featuring accents you find tricky or just want to get used to.
So instead of just general listening, find maybe a specific podcast from Australia or watch a TV series set in Scotland.
Exactly. Platforms like LingQ or even Audible sometimes let you filter by accent. YouTube is obviously full of creators from everywhere. International news channels, too. It's about consciously curating your listening diet.
Got it. So for accents, be intentional about increasing your exposure. Listen widely, but also target specific accents using diverse media. Build that mental database.
Okay, next up, another layer that often catches advanced learners. The non-literal stuff. Idioms and phrasal verbs.
Ah, the spice of English, as one source put it. Things like bite the bullet or get along with, where the meaning isn't just the sum of the parts.
Exactly. And trying to decipher them literally. That's usually a dead end. You get complete confusion.
Right.
The sources really emphasize that understanding these requires getting the figurative meaning, the cultural context. It's not just words, it's concepts.
So it's not just knowing kick and bucket means understanding the whole phrase signifies dying.
Precisely. And the sources offer practical ways to tackle these. One good one is keeping a vocabulary journal specifically for idioms and phrasal verbs.
Noting them down when you encounter them, with context.
Yes, context is vital. Seeing or hearing them used in a real situation is what makes the meaning click. The sources suggest things like sitcoms or talk shows for this.
Oh, right, because that's where you hear people using them naturally in conversation. Plus, you often get visual cues, body language, tone that help unlock the meaning.
Exactly. And then for reinforcement, using flashcard apps like Anki or Quizlet for regular review helps keep them fresh in your mind.
Okay, so for idioms and phrasal verbs, learn them actively, pay attention to context, use authentic materials like TV shows, and review regularly. Focus on the non-literal meaning.
And moving to an even more subtle level of meaning, implied meanings and sarcasm.
Ooh, this is where it gets really tricky, right? Because it's not even about the words themselves or even idioms sometimes. It's about the feeling behind the words, the subtext.
Yes, exactly, the subtext. Native speakers rely heavily on indirectness, irony, sarcasm. The classic example the source gives. Someone spills coffee on you and you say, oh, great.
The words are positive, but the tone makes the meaning totally negative.
Right, and if you just process the words literally great,
Right.
you'll completely misunderstand the situation. So how do we get better at picking up these subtle signals?
The main thing the sources point to is paying very close attention to tone of voice. How are the words actually being said? Is the pitch doing something unexpected? Is there heavy emphasis somewhere?
And if you have visuals like watching a video or talking face-to-face, facial expressions are obviously huge clues too.
Listening with your eyes as well as your ears, and learning common patterns of sarcasm.
Yeah, recognizing typical sarcastic structures or phrases helps you spot it faster. And the sources also suggest practicing with dialogues that contain implied meaning.
How would that work? Like analyzing scripts or conversations?
Exactly. Trying to figure out what's really being said underneath the surface. Even role-playing scenarios, trying out different tones yourself, can build your sensitivity to how delivery changes meaning.
That's a cool idea, embodying it yourself. So for implied meanings and sarcasm, focus on tone, context, facial expressions, look for patterns, and practice analyzing and even performing them.
Now let's shift to a challenge I think everyone faces, honestly, in any language. Just keeping focused, especially when a conversation goes on for a while.
Oh, definitely. Your brain is working overtime processing a second language. It's easy to just drift off. You miss a couple words, your mind wanders to your shopping list, and suddenly you snap back and realize you have no idea what's being said.
It happens to the best of us. And the sources emphasize that the solution isn't necessarily about having superhuman concentration, but about using active listening techniques.
Active listening. Okay. What does that look like in practice?
Well, one simple thing is taking notes. Even just jotting down key words or main phrases as you listen. It gives your brain a task and keeps you anchored.
Like little mental signposts to keep you on track?
Exactly. Another really effective technique is to mentally summarize as you go. Every so often, just quickly recap in your head, okay, what was the main point there? What did they just argue?
Ah, so you're actively processing and checking your own understanding, not just letting the sound wash over you.
Precisely. Guided listening exercises, the kind where you answer comprehension questions afterwards, also help build this focus muscle. And interestingly, the sources even bring up things like mindfulness or meditation practices.
Really? To help with listening focus.
Yeah, the idea being that improving your general ability to concentrate and be present will naturally carry over into listening situations. It strengthens that foundational skill of focus.
That makes a lot of sense. So, for staying focused during longer listening, use active techniques like taking notes and mentally summarizing, do focused exercises, and consider general mindfulness practices to boost overall concentration.
Okay, let's zoom in on a specific sound challenge. Confusing words that sound alike. Homophones.
Ah, the classic their problem, but in spoken form, or the source's example, bear and bear. They sound identical.
They do. And when you're listening, you can't rely on spelling. You have to use the context to figure out which word is intended.
Which can be really tricky if the context isn't immediately obvious, or if you're just not attuned to listening for those subtle meaning differences.
Right, so the sources suggest you need to train your ear to be more discriminating. Become a phonetic detective, as they put it.
A phonetic detective. I love that. How do we own our detective badge?
One key method is practicing with minimal pairs. These are pairs of words that differ by only one single sound, like ship and sheep, or live and leave.
Okay.
Focusing intently on just that one tiny sound difference really sharpens your ear's ability to distinguish sounds.
You're isolating the specific challenge.
Exactly. Using phonetic transcriptions can also help. Seeing the symbols that represent the precise sounds can clarify why similar words sound the way they do, even if the spelling is different.
Right. And using pronunciation guides.
Yeah, online resources like Forvo are great. You can hear different native speakers pronounce the same word, which helps you understand the range of natural variation, but also the core sound.
Hearing it from different voices builds flexibility.
Got it. So, for similar sounding words, train your ear with minimal pairs, use phonetic transcriptions for clarity, and listen to pronunciation guides. Become that phonetic detective.
Okay, now let's talk about the real world. Listening rarely happens in a soundproof booth. Huh, no kidding. More likely in a noisy coffee shop, on a busy street, or at a party with music blaring. Real-world listening is often chaotic.
And all that background noise adds another layer of difficulty, doesn't it? Especially for learners. Your brain has to do double duty, decode the English, and filter out all the distracting sounds.
Which is a skill in itself.
Yeah.
And the sources say you need to practice that specific skill.
Yeah. You can actually use apps that simulate background noise, cafes, traffic, crowds, and you can often adjust the level.
That's cool. Like controlled exposure to noise.
Exactly. And then, crucially, you need to take it into the real world. Purposely go sit in a cafe, walk down a busy street, go to a social gathering, and make an effort to follow conversations despite the noise.
Exposure therapy for noisy listening. And in those situations, focusing on keywords must be even more critical, right? You can't possibly catch everything.
Absolutely vital. When the environment is noisy, you have to be strategic. Focus on catching the key nouns, verbs, the words carrying the core information. Don't sweat the small stuff you miss due to a passing siren.
Be targeted in your listening. Okay, so for background noise, practice deliberately with simulated or real noise and learn to focus strategically on keywords when conditions are tough.
And finally, let's tackle the challenge that often feels like a combination of several others. Fast speech.
Ugh, yes. When native speakers sound like they're talking at warp speed and the words are all melting together, it's maybe the most common frustration I hear.
It's that connected speech we talked about, but at its natural, often rapid pace. The sources suggest the best approach isn't to just jump in the deep end and hope you swim. No, it's better to start slower and gradually build up your speed tolerance.
Like interval training for your ears.
Kind of. Listening to audio slightly slowed down. At first, many players allow this, and then incrementally increasing the speed as you get comfortable. You're gently stretching your brain's processing ability.
How can you apply that to regular media, like videos?
Well, watching with subtitles first, then immediately rewatching without is one way. You process it slower with the text, then challenge your ear without it. There are also speed listening exercises you can find online. Deliberately listening at, say, 1.25x or 1.5x speed.
Pushing your limits intentionally. And the sources mention something interesting, predictive listening.
Ah, yes, predictive listening. This is a more advanced skill. It means using the context, the grammar, your knowledge of the topic and speaker to anticipate what's likely to come next.
So you're not just reacting passively to the sounds, you're actively guessing ahead based on patterns.
Exactly. It gives your brain a head start. Instead of decoding every sound from scratch, you're often just confirming predictions, which is much faster and easier, especially when speech is quick.
Wow, that sounds powerful. So for fast speech, gradual exposure, start slower and increase speed, use subtitles strategically, do speed drills, and cultivate predictive listening skills.
And really, tying all of these points together is the fundamental need for exposure to authentic conversations.
Right, because the English in textbooks or simplified learning materials, while helpful for basics, often strips out all the natural messiness and spontaneity of real talk.
Totally. Real conversations have pauses, and is, interruptions, slang, idioms, people talking over each other, all the stuff we've been discussing. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we get that real-world exposure?
Well, obviously, talking to native speakers is the gold standard, but the sources stress you can get tons of authentic exposure through media, too.
Yeah. Things like vlogs, reality TV shows, talk radio, podcasts like this one, even audiobooks with natural-sounding dialogue, anything unscripted or spontaneous.
So actively seeking out those less polished, more conversational forms of media is really important, and language exchange platforms.
Absolutely. Great way to find practice partners online and get that real back-and-forth conversational flow.
Okay, so the big picture takeaway from this section. Make a conscious effort to seek out and engage with authentic, unscripted English, whether through real conversations or diverse, spontaneous media.
Phew. We've definitely covered a lot of ground there. We've navigated through common listening challenges, getting bogged down in single words, the mysteries of connected speech, different accents, idioms, sarcasm, losing focus, tricky homophones, background noise, and that feeling of speech being too fast.
Yeah, quite the list. But for each one, we've also pulled out practical strategies from the source material, specific techniques you can actually use. It's not just about identifying problems, it's about having a toolkit.
Exactly. It's a toolkit for success. And remember, you don't have to master everything overnight. Just identifying your main challenges and trying out one or two relevant strategies consistently can make a huge difference.
It's an active process, right? Improving listening isn't passive. You have to engage with it. Be patient with yourself, notice the small improvements, and keep experimenting.
Even just 15, 20 minutes a day focused on one specific technique. That adds up incredibly quickly. Small steps lead to big progress.
Okay, so building on all those mechanics and strategies, let's shift focus slightly. Let's step into the actual rhythm of everyday English as it's really spoken day to day.
Yeah, because sometimes it feels like native speakers have this whole other layer of language, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Not necessarily complex grammar or fancy words, but just the way they put things together in casual situations, the little phrases, the routines.
Totally, like how someone orders coffee, or makes small talk with a colleague, or even just reacts to their alarm clock. It's often quite different from textbook dialogues. Our sources actually give us a really cool window into this. They walk us through a typical day for a native speaker. Let's call him James, 32, works in marketing.
And what's great is it's presented not as a lesson, but just moments, mundane moments from his day. Getting up, commuting, work, grabbing lunch, meeting friends.
Right, and the value isn't just listing the words he says, but seeing how he uses them in context, the natural flow, the little social cues, the common phrases that are just woven into the fabric of daily interaction.
It's like being a fly on the wall, isn't it? Observing how natural communication actually happens moment by moment.
Yeah. So our goal here is to kind of dissect these everyday moments, recognize the common patterns, the habitual routines, understand those unspoken things, the tone, the assumptions, the relationship dynamics that give everyday English its real flavor.
And by tuning into these details, you can really boost your comprehension in similar real-life situations, feel more confident, and start to just recognize what authentic, natural English sounds like.
Okay, let's follow James. His day starts, predictably, with the alarm at 6:30 a.m. His first reaction, a sleepy groan, already hits snooze. Classic.
So relatable. And when it goes off again, his response, all right, I'm up. It's not just words, is it? It perfectly captures that casual, slightly reluctant acceptance. It sets the tone simple, natural sounds, not formal announcements.
Those little fillers like, all right, they're everywhere and make it sound so much more natural. But then reality bites. He checks his phone work text from a colleague, Emily. Reminder about a 10 a.m. client meeting.
And his reply text. Got it. Thanks for the reminder. Look how efficient that is. Short, polite, direct confirmation. Perfect for professional communication where the message is simple and clear.
Yeah, shows you don't need flowery language to be professional. Then he's making breakfast and we get a glimpse of his inner monologue. All right, let's see. Eggs, toast, and coffee. That should do it.
That phrase, that should do it, is such a natural way to express satisfaction or completion for a simple task or choice. It's interesting how these set phrases are just part of our internal thinking, too.
Just then, his roommate Mark comes in, the greeting, "Morning, man, you're up early." Notice the casual man, super common between male friends or roommates, totally informal.
And James's reply mixes info with politeness. Yeah, I got a big meeting today. Want some coffee? Offering something is often part of that morning ritual.
Mark's reply, "That would be great, thanks." Standard, polite acceptance. These little back and forths just reinforce basic social scripts.
Then they slip into small talk. Mark kicks it off. So, any big plans for the weekend? Classic, easy, open-ended conversation starter.
And James gives a typical non-committal answer. Not really. Might catch a movie or just relax. Notice he keeps his options open, and importantly, he turns the question back. What about you? Keeps it balanced.
Mark mentions hiking, then invites James. Thinking about going hiking. You should come. It's casual, no pressure.
And James's reply, "Sounds fun, I'll let you know." That is a masterclass in polite, indirect acceptance, or rather, non-rejection.
I'll let you know, the classic polite maybe.
Yeah.
It avoids a hard yes or no right away. So useful for navigating social offers smoothly.
Okay, fast forward. James is ready to leave, does that mental checklist. All right, wallet, keys, phone, good to go. That phrase, good to go, super common, casual way to say I'm ready or everything's set.
Efficient, informal, fits perfectly. On his commute, he bumps into his colleague, Sarah, her greeting. Hey, James, how's it going? Friendly, standard, expects a brief, positive-ish answer.
Which James gives. Hey, Sarah, I'm good, just gearing up for that client meeting. Brief update, connects it to his day, provides context.
Sarah shows she's aware. Oh yeah, the 10 a.m. one. Are you ready for it? Building on his comment.
James's reply, I think so. I went over the notes last night. Notice that I think so. It's prepared but realistic. Very natural hedging when you're confident but not absolutely certain.
And Sarah offers support. Nice. I'll back you up if you need anything. Lovely bit of workplace teamwork there. looking out for each other.
James is appreciate it, perfect, standard response. They chat a bit more about work during the commute, showing how even these in-between times are full of this natural conversational language.
Arriving at the office, greets Lisa, the receptionist. Morning, Lisa. Simple, polite.
Lisa responds, linking it to his day. Good morning, James. Ready for your meeting?
And James uses a bit of light humor. As ready as I'll ever be. That self-deprecating touch is a very common way to respond to, are you ready? For something potentially stressful. It creates connection.
Later, his boss, Mr. Anderson, pops by. The opening. James, got a minute? Standard polite opener from a superior. Respects his time.
James replies, of course. What's up? Depending on the relationship, what's up? Can be perfectly fine, informal, but appropriate.
Mr. Anderson gives him a quick warning, a heads up. That's the phrase he uses about something the client might ask. Just wanted to remind you, be sure to touch on that.
And James acknowledges clearly, got it. Thanks for the heads up. Heads up, super common informal word for a warning or useful piece of information beforehand. Essential workplace vocabulary.
Good news, the meeting goes well, preparation paid off. So, lunchtime, he's in the cafe with Sarah, the interaction with the cashier. Hi there, what can I get for you today? Standard service opening.
James orders using a very common structure. I'll have a turkey sandwich. Sarah uses another. I'll take the Caesar salad. Both standard ways to order food or drinks. I'll have or I'll take.
After ordering, they debrief the meeting. Sarah asks the natural follow-up. So, what did you think?
James gives his assessment, positive but cautious. I think it went well. The client seemed happy. Client reaction is the key metric.
Sarah offers praise. Yeah, you handled our questions really well. Giving positive feedback builds good team vibes.
James says a simple thanks, then crucially, tunes the conversation back to her. So, how's your project going? Shows reciprocal interest. It's not all about him.
Sarah gives that very typical busy but okay answer. Busy but good. I have a deadline coming up. Acknowledges pressure but stays positive.
James offers help. If you need any help, let me know. Again, demonstrating that supportive colleague relationship. Sarah's reply. Appreciate it. Closes that loop nicely.
Afternoon rolls on. He gets a text from his friend Mark. Hey, don't forget we're meeting at the bar. Typical informal reminder.
James confirms and adds enthusiasm. Of course. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. Great phrase for showing positive anticipation.
Evening arrives. He's at the bar. Friends greet him warmly. There he is. How is work? Enthusiastic, informal welcome.
James gives the quick summary. Not bad. Meeting went well. And the immediate pivot to social mode. Nice. Let's celebrate. What are you drinking? Sets the fun vibe.
Ordering his drink. I'll take a beer. Simple, classic. The source just mentions they chat and joke, that easygoing social interaction.
When it's time for James to leave, he uses a common announcement phrase. All right, guys, I'm calling it a night. Means I'm done for the evening, I'm heading home.
His friends give him that playful peer pressure. Ah, come on, one more drink. Very typical friendly teasing.
James gives his reason and uses a relaxed farewell. I have an early morning, catch you later. Catch you later. Ubiquitous informal goodbye.
Finally, he's home, winding down, scrolling his phone. Let's see what's new today. A totally relatable downtime moment.
Setting the alarm, lights out. The day comes full circle. What's really striking when you break it down like this is just how much of this natural, casual language fills these completely ordinary moments.
Exactly. From sleepy mumbles to quick confirmations, workplace chats to bar banter. These little snippets, these habitual phrases, they're the real glue of everyday English. They convey tone, manage relationships, keep things flowing in a way that formal grammar rules just don't capture.
Looking at James's day gives you this practical, relatable window into those nuances. It's not about memorizing isolated phrases, but seeing how they function organically to navigate different social and professional contexts. It really helps bridge that gap between textbook examples and language in the wild.
It's like you start noticing the invisible threads holding conversations together. Maybe as you go about your own day, pay attention to those little interactions. How do you greet people? Offer help? Say goodbye casually. Then think about how James did similar things in English. Maybe even try out some of his phrases yourself.
And here's something interesting to chew on from James's day. Beyond just the words and grammar, what did you pick up about the culture of speaking English in different settings? Think about how his formalities shifted, those subtle ways he showed politeness, how he built and maintained connections with his boss versus his roommate versus his friends. What stood out to you, and how might you use those observations in your own communication?
You know, speaking of those subtle ways we communicate, it's amazing how much meaning can be packed into just a few words when it's an idiom. It's like a shortcut, isn't it? A single phrase conjures up a whole situation or feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Idioms are like, yeah, a secret code sometimes. They tap into shared cultural understanding, let's say complex things really concisely, and native speakers use them all the time without even thinking about it.
Which can make listening tricky if you don't know them. And that's exactly what we're diving into now. The rich, sometimes confusing world of advanced English idioms. Understanding these really unlocks a deeper layer of comprehension.
We've got a great collection here from our sources, grouped into different categories, everyday situations, work, social life, etc., to make them a bit easier to digest. The goal is to break down not just the literal meaning, but the function, that extra layer of nuance they add.
And of course, we'll give you real-life examples so you can see them in action. Hopefully this will help you start recognizing them, understanding them, and maybe even feel confident enough to sprinkle a few into your own conversations. It's about getting that next level of fluency.
Okay, let's kick things off with idioms for everyday situations. First one, bite the bullet.
Bite the bullet. Sounds unpleasant.
It often refers to something unpleasant. It means you have to face a difficult or painful situation with courage and stoicism. You just endure it because you have to.
Right, like I really didn't want to rewrite the whole report, but the boss insisted, so I just had to bite the bullet.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Or here's a quick chat. Emma says, "Ugh, I still haven't called the dentist about that tooth." Jake replies, "Yeah, I know it's no fun. But you just got to bite the bullet and make the appointment."
You know, I heard the origin might be from old battlefields. Soldiers literally biting a lead bullet during surgery without anesthesia.
Wow. Yeah, that paints a powerful picture, doesn't it? Really emphasizes that idea of pushing through serious discomfort. It's such a common feeling, that need to just grit your teeth and do the hard thing.
Okay, moving on. Next up, hit the nail on the head.
Hit the nail on the head. This one's positive. It means you've described something exactly right, identified the root cause of a problem perfectly, or made a point that is absolutely spot on.
Like, her analysis of why the project failed, she absolutely hit the nail on the head.
Exactly. Or imagine Tom says, "I just can't figure out why website traffic is down." And Lisa suggests, "Maybe our social media strategy is outdated." Tom replies, "You know what? You hit the nail on the head."
That feels good to say, right?
Yeah.
It's more than just agreeing. It's like, yes, that's precisely it. It acknowledges the accuracy of someone's insight.
Totally. And validates their perception, suggests they've perfectly diagnosed the situation.
Okay, last one for this everyday category. The ball is in your court.
The ball is in your court. Pretty straightforward, this one. It means it's now your responsibility to take the next step or make the next decision. The action has been passed to you.
Like, I've sent you the proposal with all the details. The ball is in your court now to decide if you want to proceed.
Yep. Or in a conversation. Steve asks Linda, "So did the company make you an offer?" Linda says, "Yes, they sent the official offer this morning. So the ball's in my court now."
You can really picture it like tennis or volleyball. The ball's on your side. It clearly marks whose turn it is to act, and sometimes implies a bit of expectation or maybe even pressure.
Very common for indicating that handover of responsibility in any kind of process, with steps.
All right, let's switch gears. Idioms for work and business. First one, back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board. This means an initial plan or attempt has failed, and you need to start over from the beginning, rethink your approach completely. Like going back to where you first sketched out ideas.
Like, the investors hated our initial business plan, so it's back to the drawing board.
Exactly. Or in a team meeting, Mark says, "Well, the client rejected the proposal." Sophia sighs, "Okay, that's tough, but it looks like it's back to the drawing board. Let's figure out what they didn't like and brainstorm something new."
It really emphasizes a fresh start, not just tweaking the old plan. It implies learning from the failure to create something better.
Sometimes you need that reset, even if it's frustrating. It forces a reevaluation that can lead to a stronger outcome.
Next work idiom, throw in the towel.
Throw in the towel. This means to give up, admit defeat, especially when you're facing a really tough challenge or overwhelming odds.
Comes from boxing, right? When the coach throws a towel into the ring to concede the fight.
That's the image, yeah. For example, after months of trying to fix the buggy software, the development team finally threw in the towel and decided to rebuild it from scratch.
Or maybe John is struggling with a complex task and tells Emily, "I've been at this for days. I think I just have to throw in the towel." Emily might say, "No, don't give up yet. Let's look at it together."
It signifies reaching a breaking point, feeling like the struggle is no longer worth it or possible to win. It's about tested resilience.
Okay, last one for the work category. Think outside the box.
Think outside the box. Ah, a modern classic. It means to think creatively, innovatively, to come up with ideas that aren't limited by the usual constraints or conventional thinking.
Like, if we want to disrupt the market, we can't just copy competitors. We need to really think outside the box.
Yes. Imagine a brainstorming session. The manager says, our current marketing campaigns are falling flat. We need some radically different ideas. Let's all try to think outside the box for this next phase. Maybe suggesting interactive online experiences or guerrilla marketing tactics.
It's about mentally stepping outside the usual parameters and exploring unconventional solutions, challenging the status quo.
Exactly. It's a call for creativity and non-standard approaches, especially when the standard ways aren't working.
All right, let's move into social situations. First idiom, spill the beans.
Spill the beans. This means to reveal a secret, often accidentally or indiscreetly. You let the cat out of the bag, so to speak.
Like, we were trying to keep the party a secret, but my little brother spilled the beans to the birthday girl.
Classic scenario. Or maybe Emma asks Sophia, why has David been acting so secretive lately? Sophia hesitates, then whispers, okay, don't tell anyone, but I think I have to spill the beans. He's planning a surprise trip for his wife.
The image is great beans scattered everywhere, impossible to put back neatly. It captures that sense of information escaping, usually unintentionally. It's often a slip of the tongue.
Right. It's a common social mishap where revealing information changes the dynamic.
Next social one. Go the extra mile.
Go the extra mile. This means to make a special effort, to do more than what is expected or required, to go above and beyond the call of duty.
Like, the hotel staff didn't just give us directions, they drew a map and highlighted points of interest. They really went the extra mile.
Great example. Or maybe Lisa stayed late to help a colleague finish a presentation. The colleague might say later, I really appreciate you staying back. You always go the extra mile.
It highlights dedication, initiative, and a willingness to put in more than the minimum effort. People who do this often make a big positive impact.
Definitely. It's about that commitment to doing a really thorough or helpful job, whether at work or in personal relationships.
Okay, last social idiom for now. Hit it off.
Hit it off. This describes having an immediate positive connection with someone you've just met. You click instantly, have great rapport from the start.
Like, I was nervous about meeting my new team, but I hit it off with my desk mate right away.
Perfect. Or maybe Rachel asks Paul, how was the networking event? Paul beams, it was surprisingly good. I met this designer and we just hit it off. Talks for ages, found out we have tons in common.
That feeling of instant chemistry, right? Like you're immediately on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
It makes forming new friendships or collaborations feel effortless.
Yeah, it describes that spark when conversation flows easily and you quickly find common ground.
Now, let's tackle idioms often used when discussing difficult situations. First, through thick and thin.
Through thick and thin. This is a really strong one. It signifies enduring loyalty and support during both good times. Thick, meaning abundant or prosperous, and bad times. Thin, meaning sparse or difficult.
Like, they've been best friends since childhood and have stuck by each other through thick and thin.
Beautiful example. Or in a heartfelt moment. Emma, thanks, Jake. You were always there for me during that really tough year. Jake replies, of course. That's what friends do. We stick together through thick and thin.
It speaks to an incredibly strong, resilient bond, a commitment that doesn't waver when things get tough, unconditional support.
It really captures the essence of deep loyalty and shared history, enduring challenges and celebrating joys together.
Next difficult situation idiom, between a rock and a hard place.
Between a rock and a hard place. This describes being in a dilemma where you have to choose between two equally difficult or unpleasant options. There's no easy or good choice.
Like, I can either accept a job I don't want or risk being unemployed for months. I really feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place.
Exactly, that kind of impossible choice. Or consider Sarah telling Mike, my current apartment is too expensive, but moving means a much longer commute, which will cost me time and money too. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place.
That feeling of being trapped, cornered, with no good way out, it's a very stressful situation. Sometimes you just have to choose the lesser of two evils.
Precisely. It highlights being forced into a decision where every option has significant downsides.
Okay, our final idiom for difficult situations. Cut to the chase.
Cut to the chase. This means to get directly to the most important point or part of something, skipping the preamble or less relevant details. Be direct.
Like in a meeting that's running along. Okay, everyone, we're short on time, so let's cut to the chase. What's the final decision?
Right. Or a boss might say to an employee, I need the bottom line on the budget issue. The employee responds, okay, I'll cut to the chase. We need to reduce spending by 15% immediately.
It emphasizes efficiency, directness, and respect for time, especially when things are urgent or the core message is critical.
Very common in business settings or anytime there's pressure to be concise and focus on the essentials.
Okay, last category. Idioms about success and failure. First, a blessing in disguise.
Blessing in disguise.
Here.
This refers to something that seems bad or unlucky at first, but ultimately results in something good happening. An apparent misfortune that turns out to be fortunate.
Like, missing that train was a blessing in disguise because the next one had my future wife on it.
Ah, great example. Or maybe Tom tells Lisa, I was so disappointed when I didn't get that promotion. Lisa later finds out the promoted person had to move to a remote location Tom hated and says, maybe not getting it was a blessing in disguise.
Finding the silver lining. It highlights how challenges or setbacks can sometimes lead to unexpected positive outcomes or opportunities. Perspective is key.
It's a reminder that things aren't always what they seem initially, and adversity can sometimes pave the way for something better.
Next up, burn the midnight oil.
Burn the midnight oil. This means to work or study late into the night, often implying intense effort to meet a deadline or prepare for something important.
Like, the students were burning the midnight oil all week preparing for their final exams.
Exactly. We've all done it. Conversation. Alex sees Nina looking exhausted and asks, long night. Nina sighs, yeah, I was burning the midnight oil trying to finish that client report.
The imagery comes from using oil lamps to work after dark. It signifies dedication, hard work, sometimes sacrifice to get something done.
It's a very common experience associated with deadlines, exams, or intensive projects.
And our final idiom for today, jump on the bandwagon.
Jump on the bandwagon. This means to join or support something, a trend, an activity, an opinion that has recently become popular or successful, often without deep personal conviction, simply because others are doing it.
Like, suddenly everyone is wearing those oversized sneakers. It feels like half the people just jumped on the bandwagon.
Right, or Tom observes, it seems like every company is suddenly talking about AI ethics. Lisa replies, yeah, it's definitely the hot topic. Some are genuinely committed, others are probably just jumping on the bandwagon.
It speaks to the power of trends and social influence, maybe the fear of missing out, FOMO. It questions the authenticity of the participation sometimes.
It's a really interesting social dynamic, how ideas or activities gain momentum and why people choose to join in.
Wow. So learning these idioms, it's clearly about so much more than just memorizing phrases, isn't it? It's about understanding cultural context, nuance, implied meaning.
Absolutely. It allows you to understand native speakers on a much richer level and express yourself more authentically, more naturally. It's like getting access to another layer of the language's personality.
So we really encourage you, as you listen and read English, start trying to spot these idioms. Notice how they're used. The more you encounter them in context, the more their meaning will solidify for you.
It really boosts your fluency, your confidence, and gives you that deeper insight into the mindset and culture behind the language.
And that leads us to a final thought for this section. Beyond the idioms themselves, what other subtle aspects of language strike you as crucial for truly understanding and connecting with people? Maybe it's the specific use of humor, the shared cultural references that pop up, the subtleties of tone. Language is this incredibly complex tapestry, isn't it? There's always more to explore.
Okay, so let's say you're feeling pretty good. You're crushing the grammar, your vocabulary is awesome, maybe you're comfortably C1 or even pushing higher.
But then you decide to relax with a movie or binge watch that cool new TV show everyone's talking about, and bam, suddenly it feels like a different language again. It's fast, it's full of slang, maybe accents, and you're working way harder than you thought you'd have to.
Oh, it's such a common experience.
Yeah.
The English you hear in authentic media, movies, TV shows, it can sound really different from the, let's say, more structured English in textbooks or even news reports.
Exactly. And that's why the source material for this final part of our deep dive calls Movies and TV Your Secret Weapons. They're fantastic tools for seriously boosting your listening skills and picking up all those cultural bits and pieces you only get from hearing language used naturally.
The whole idea is to turn something you enjoy watching, shows and movies, into a powerful learning opportunity, but without making it feel like you're back in a classroom studying.
Yeah, leveraging entertainment for natural learning. I love that. So how do we actually do that effectively? According to the sources, it's not just about hitting play and zoning out, right?
Definitely not. It takes a little strategy. And the first key step, the sources stress, is choosing the right kind of media. Not all movies and shows are created equal for language learning.
Okay, so what should we look for? What kinds of shows or movies are generally good starting points?
They often recommend genres known for clearer, more everyday dialogue. Sitcoms are a classic example. Think Friends, How I Met Your Mother, maybe The Big Bang Theory.
Why sick?
Well, they use lots of everyday language. The humor often hinges on understanding conversational nuances, and the familiar situations, apartments, cafes, workplaces give you a lot of context to help predict what's being said.
That makes sense. The context helps fill in gaps. What else works well?
Drama series can be good too, like Breaking Bad or The Crown. They often have more structured dialogue than, say, chaotic reality TV, and the strong storylines keep you hooked, motivating you to understand even the challenging bits.
And what about things with clearer, maybe slower speech?
News programs or documentaries, like Planet Earth or The Social Dilemma, often feature very clear narration. They're excellent for tuning your ear to standard pronunciation, different accents in interviews, and a good pace.
But the absolute number one rule, the sources say, is?
It has to be something you genuinely enjoy watching.
Right. If you're bored, your brain just checks out. No learning happens. So pick genres, actors, stories that you actually find interesting.
Totally. And another smart tip they offer: consider starting with a movie or show where you already know the plot. Maybe you've read the book or seen the movie before in your own language.
Ah, why is that helpful?
Because it takes the pressure off. If you already know what's happening story-wise, you're not using precious brain power trying to follow the plot and decode the language simultaneously. You can focus almost entirely on listening to how things are being said in English.
Frees up mental bandwidth for the language itself.
Clever. Okay, so you've picked your show. Now, the big question: subtitles. How should we use them? The sources say strategically, not just as a default crutch.
Exactly. The recommended approach is usually to start with English subtitles on.
English subtitles. Why?
Because it connects the sounds you're hearing directly with the written words. You see how words are pronounced, where they connect, how they look spelled out. It reinforces that sound-spelling connection.
Okay, links the spoken and written forms. Makes sense. But the ultimate goal is to rely on your ears. So the next step is to gradually try watching without the subtitles. Push yourself to understand just by listening.
And what about subtitles in your own native language?
The sources generally advise using those only as a last resort. Like if there's a really complex scene or dialogue you absolutely cannot figure out otherwise, maybe quickly check the native language subtitle. But resist the temptation to just leave them on the whole time. You want to train your English listening muscles.
Okay, so English subs. First to connect sound and text, then gradually try without, native language subs only for emergencies.
Got it. And related to this is a specific technique the sources mention called the two-pass method.
Two-pass. Sounds intriguing. How does it work?
Simple, really. You watch a specific scene or maybe a short episode twice.
Okay.
Pass number 1. Watch it with English subtitles on. Your goal here is just to understand the plot, get the main ideas, follow what's happening.
Got it. First pass, story comprehension.
Pass number 2. Watch the exact same scene or episode again, but this time with no subtitles at all.
Ah!
Because you already know the story from the first pass, you can now focus all your mental energy purely on listening to the English, trying to catch more details, nuances, specific words you might have missed while reading the subtitles the first time.
That's brilliant. You're giving your brain a dedicated listening workout after getting the context.
Exactly. It really helps reinforce what you learned and trains your ear to pick up more from the audio alone. Now, beyond just managing subtitles, the sources really emphasize the need for active listening while watching.
Right. Don't just be a passive couch potato. Engage your brain. How?
Well, one simple but powerful technique is taking notes. Jot down new words, interesting phrases, maybe idioms you hear. Crucially, try to note the context to who said it, in what situation.
So you're not just collecting words, but understanding how they're used. Turns TV time into a vocab building session.
Precisely. Another active technique. Pause and repeat. Here's something tricky. Fast dialogue. Unclear pronunciation. Hit pause. Rewind a few seconds. Listen again. Maybe even try saying it yourself.
Breaking down those challenging bits instead of just letting them fly by.
Yes. And that leads naturally to another technique we've already discussed. Shadowing.
Shadowing again. Repeating what the actors say, almost in real time.
It's so good for this. It forces you to mimic their pronunciation, their intonation, the rhythm of their speech. It's amazing for improving not just your listening, but your own speaking fluency, and naturalness.
Training your ear and mouth together. What else? The sources mentioned predicting.
Yeah, predictive listening. As you're watching, based on the scene, the character's personalities, the situation, try to guess what they might say now.
Keeps your brain actively involved.
Totally. It sharpens your listening because you're anticipating language patterns, not just passively receiving sounds.
Okay, so active strategies. Take notes on vocab phrases and context. Pause and repeat tricky parts. Shadow the actor's speech and try predicting what comes next. That definitely makes watching feel more interactive.
It really does. And movies and TV are, of course, fantastic resources for getting used to different accents.
Ah, yes, the accent challenge.
But also a great opportunity. The sources suggest maybe starting with accents that are common in learning materials, like Standard American or British, RP, which you'll find in tons of shows. But then make a conscious effort to branch out.
Like deliberately choosing a show set in Australia or Ireland or a specific region of the U.S.
Exactly. They give examples. For British, The Crown, RP, or maybe the tougher Birmingham accent in Peaky Blinders, Australian. Bluey, yes, the kids show.
Oh.
Or Harrow, American. Loads of options like Breaking Bad, Stranger Things, Brooklyn 99, Irish Scottish, Derry Girls, or Outlander.
That's a helpful starting list. And if an accent is really throwing you off...
The sources remind us that transcripts can be a lifesaver here, not just for finding words, but for matching the sounds you're hearing to the written form, helping you decode that specific accent's patterns.
Right. And shadowing again must be super useful for accents too.
Incredibly useful. Trying to mimic how speakers with a particular accent pronounce words and use intonation is one of the best ways to train your ear and improve your own pronunciation if you want to sound more like them.
The sources even laid out steps for shadowing, didn't they?
Yeah. Pick a short clip, 30, 60 seconds. Listen a few times just for the sounds, rhythm, tone. Then try repeating along with the audio, matching speed and intonation as best you can. Maybe record yourself and compare to the original. It's very hands-on.
Okay, makes it feel less daunting. What about making the learning even more interactive, going beyond just watching and shadowing?
Good question. The sources suggest things like turning scenes into mini quizzes for yourself. After watching a scene, try summarizing what happened, maybe out loud, maybe write it down, or make up a few comprehension questions about the scene and answer them.
Turning your living room into a self-study zone.
Kind of. Another idea is joining online communities related to the shows you're watching. Reddit forums, Facebook groups, language learning app discussion boards. Talking about the plot, characters, or confusing lines in English with other fans or learners is great practice and can help clarify things.
Like a virtual study buddy system based on your favorite show.
Exactly. And don't forget specialized language learning apps that use video clips. Things like LingQ, Yabla, Fluent U. They often have interactive subtitles. You can click for definitions, quizzes built in, tools to say vocabulary. Technology can make this process easier and more engaging.
Lots of tools out there.
Yeah.
So is there anything else key to making this work long term?
Yes, two crucial things. Consistency and leveling up.
Ah, consistency. The magic ingredient for almost everything.
Pretty much. Aim for regular, manageable sessions. Even 20, 30 minutes of focused watching most days is way better than a marathon session once a week, and sticking with one series for a while can be beneficial.
Why stick with one show?
You get used to the characters' voices, their specific ways of speaking, recurring jokes or vocabulary. It lowers the cognitive load over time.
And rewatching, you mentioned that earlier.
Highly recommended. Rewatch favorite episodes or even whole series. You'll be amazed how much more you pick up the second or third time around nuances, jokes, background details you totally missed before.
Okay. And then leveling up, gradually increasing the difficulty.
Exactly. Once you feel comfortable with, say, sitcoms, try moving to dramas with more complex plots or faster dialogue, like The Social Network movie or Suits. Then maybe historical dramas or fantasy with more specialized vocabulary, Game of Thrones, The Witcher. Eventually, challenge yourself with things like news analysis shows or talk shows, BBC News, The Daily Show, which use more formal language and discuss complex current events.
Pushing yourself gently but consistently.
That's the idea. So just to recap the core strategies for using movies and TV. Choose content you enjoy with relatively clear dialogue. Use subtitles smartly English first, then try without. Try the two-pass method. Engage actively with notes, pausing, shadowing, predicting. Embrace accent variety, using transcripts and shadowing to help. Make it interactive with self-quizzing or online discussions. Be consistent. And gradually increase the challenge level.
What's really cool about all this is that it goes way beyond just improving listening comprehension. You're getting this authentic immersion into English-speaking cultures, the humor, the customs, the way people interact, but in a way that feels fun and natural, not like studying a textbook.
Absolutely. It makes the whole process more engaging, more motivating, and ultimately more effective because you're connecting with the language in its living, breathing context. So we really hope you'll try incorporating some of these tips. You might be surprised how much your understanding deepens and your confidence grows.
And to leave you with one last thing to think about, go pick a scene, just one scene, from a movie or TV show you genuinely love. This week, try using just one of the techniques we discussed, maybe shadowing a few lines or watching it twice with and without subtitles, or just pausing to note down unfamiliar phrases. See what new things you notice. Or just reflect on all the different English accents you encounter. What do they reveal about the incredible diversity of the language and the people who speak it worldwide? Definitely some food for thought there.
Until next time, happy listening, happy watching, and happy learning.